you're doing your job, and then year-end review, somebody's coming in and they're like, there's a problem here, let me help out. And you're like, I've been struggling with this problem and figuring things out on my own all year long. Who are you?
And what does that say to you as an employee about how much somebody actually cares about you and your work versus, the CYA aspect of the performance review process? And I think that's the other thing is it's not that poor performance doesn't need to be addressed. Poor performance needs to be addressed in the moment. Mm-hmm. And annual reviews are more for bigger picture kind of, this is how did you see your work? This is development. This is how I see your work.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like annual reviews really should be like strategy sessions for the individual. Like Agreed. This is where we're going as an organization. How do you fit in with your skill set, and what do we need to develop?
And who can answer that question better than the employee, which is the second piece of the easy change performance model, which is employee-led versus supervisor-led. And so no matter what process you're using, you can incorporate having employees evaluate their own performance, lead conversations, bring what they know to the table before there's some sort of guided or evaluative conversation from the leader. And one of the things that organizations miss out on most by not doing it that way is because when leaders tell employees what they want them to do, employees are going to nod, maybe disagree, but probably mostly disagree silently. You're not going to get much conversation. It's going to be, I'm telling you what you're going to do, and then you're going to at least tell me you're going to do it. If you're not, I'll find out later.
I'll find out when you don't do it. And I mean, I don't even think it's that insidious a lot of the time too. Like, I think sometimes employees actually are on board and want to do it, but may be reluctant to admit that they're not exactly sure where the path is. Because we ask people all the time to do things that, as a leader, we're not exactly sure. We think it's in the realm of possibility. We're kind of relying on that other person to be like, I think maybe I get here. But so, like, we're relying on an iterative process.
Yes.
But it's in a power dynamic that doesn't really lend itself to much iteration.
That's right. And you can, with that same power dynamic, you can completely shift and have better conversations by having employees lead the conversation. Because what will happen is when the employee answers the question, what's expected of me? What are my priorities? What are my challenges? Whatever. And they're sharing this with the leader. Instantly, the leader knows where there is misalignment. When the employee is saying something that the leader's like, nope, that's not quite what I understand it to be, or no, that's what I meant. And so it's gold because it automatically zooms the conversation in on the spots of misalignment, where the leader can then spend their time addressing those areas and allowing the employee to really own, and then the leader guides and leads and supports, versus spending their whole energy telling employees what to do, but never seeing the gap.
Yeah.
It really exposes the gap that makes leadership incredibly powerful, because in those moments, you have the employee who's fully contributing, he's wanting to do better, who's telling you what they know. And often leaders overestimate how clear expectations are for employees. I used to do Gallup engagement surveys for companies a lot. And that very first question, I know what's expected of me at work. Everybody's like, of course, people know what's expected of them at work. And guess what?
I've asked similar questions, and everybody's always like, yes. Everybody fails to see the subjectivity of a job.
Uh-huh. And so you may have expressed it 50 times, but what somebody received from what you were expressing is going to be different from person to person. It's going to be translated differently. And the only way or the fastest way, I'll say, to find that out is to have employees lead these conversations, give them a list of questions to answer, have them come in prepared to lead the conversation. And you're, as a leader, listening, and you're listening for areas of alignment. You're listening for information you didn't already know. And you're really being very strategic about how you're using your time with that person to create more alignment and progress. And that is this is where, from moving from manager led to employee led, has a couple of tricky parts. And one is this illusion of control. And this
explain
ability,
what that is. I mean, I think it's somewhat self-explanatory, but go ahead.
Yes. And I think my last piece really hits this illusion of control. But I think it's this: as a manager, if I have a structure given to me by the organization and I know this is the conversation I need to have, I can do task 1, 2, and 3 and follow this rule book and do this thing. But if I'm supposed to just open myself up in a conversation to what I don't know what's going to come out of my employee's mouth, and I need to be skilled enough to be able to manage that, that is terrifying for many people, because it feels like you're just dangling them out there. And this employee-led to manager-led, I think, requires the most support in terms of training and really helping people level up in the communication department, so that employees are better equipped to have great conversations.
I'm going to plug my book, The Uncertainty Playbook, by Jeffrey Tumlin and Cindy Baldi. Like, it's totally like, you're right. I mean, uncertainty undoes a lot of people, and there are strategies that we have 14 strategies in the book about how to deal with uncertainty and the impact of uncertainty at work. And so that's one of those situations where just developing that muscle of being comfortable with not knowing what's coming.
Totally agree. I totally agree. And I think that for a lot of leaders, what I see is that perfectionism immobilizes them. That leaders don't feel like they have the ability completely. And so they're a little worried that they don't have the enough or the right ability. And then if they can't do it perfectly, they don't want to do it at all, because they feel that heavy burden and responsibility of leadership and of being a leader. And what I talk to leaders about is really reframe what good communication looks like. Good communication doesn't look like perfect conversations every time. It will not happen. You are only in charge of 50% of any conversation, so you can't know how it's going to go. The way to be a good communicator is to learn to recover and repair when things inevitably go sideways, and they will. And that's how you are a good leader. That's how you do it. It's not waiting until the timing is perfect, the message is perfect. It's about connecting when it's needed, when it's the most important time to connect, and then navigating that and figuring it out as you go along. But you don't have to do it perfectly.
You don't have to do it perfectly. I will say, though, that like considering timing is part of like a good communication skills, and looking for like patterns where like you and this particular person get tripped up. Like these are good practices. So for example, like at the end of the day, when people are exhausted, you probably shouldn't be having deep conversations that require creativity in the brain being fully engaged, right?
Yeah.
Because by the end of the day, people are exhausted. So like those conversations probably need to happen earlier in the day.
And if it's employee led, once this kind of practice starts getting in motion, it's not the manager who's approaching employees for conversations. It's employees who are approaching the manager when they need help, when there is an issue, when there's a problem. When employees are allowed to take ownership for their own performance, that is what it looks like. It's not the manager planning the conversation. It's as needed when it's happening conversations.
Yeah, and I think there's some of that with the excitement, but I think also even on the employee front, like you're approaching a manager at the end of the day.
Yes.
And
right.
Quite possibly putting a turd on their plate.
That's right.
You may want to think about the strategy in terms of when you do that. There's never going to be a perfect time. Like what you're saying is there isn't a perfect time. Totally agree. but there are times we know that are less optimal.
Right. And so one of the things that we teach people with Open360 is you're responsible for your own emotional safety. You're responsible for taking care of yourself, because I can't read your mind. I can't know what's happening for you, whether you are exhausted at the end of the day or whether you're an afternoon person and you're just, you're just getting into your groove at 3 p.m. I don't know what that looks like for you. And so we teach people how to identify their own self state and to be able to express that to other people in a way that's healthy. That's not about you. It's not that I don't want to talk to you. It's right now, this is where my head is at. I've got a million things on my plate. Can we talk about this tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m.? And but when you put responsibility into the hands of each individual for their own needs, their own safety, to be able to express what they need in conversations and communications with people, then it relieves the other person also of the feeling that, oh, I have to do it perfectly. I have to know what they're thinking. I have to anticipate and read this person's mind, because you can start to trust that people will speak up and will tell you what they need, and vice versa, that you can do the same.